IR 3 apart in UPSC CSE 2024. They didn't wait to feel ready. They started smart with the GS Foundation course at Vision IS Delhi. Structured learning, focused current affairs, real mentorship, test feedback that actually helps you grow. This course isn't just about study hours, it's about direction, clarity and the strategy toppers trust. Start strong. Start where toppers started.
UPSC preparation is not just about reading books or watching online lectures. It requires personal guidance, real discussions, and structured practice. This is where offline mentoring makes all the difference. Unlike online learning, where doubts often remain unresolved, offline mentoring offers direct interaction, real-time feedback, and an environment of discipline and competition. One-to-one sessions help students get tailored advice, strategy corrections, and focused improvement. Every aspirant has different strengths and weaknesses. Personal mentoring helps address them effectively. Ground discussions sharpen analytical thinking and help students develop a multi-dimensional perspective on issues crucial for prelims, mains, and interview. Elocution sessions help in personality development, clarity of thought, and confidence, essential for UPSC interviews. Test writing is the most crucial part of UPSC preparation. It helps in time management, structuring answers, and improving content quality. Offline mentoring is not just about teaching. It's about grooming future officers with the right guidance, discipline, and confidence. So if you are preparing for UPSC, make sure you have the right mentor by your side.
Are you still juggling newspapers, random notes, and endless PDFs trying to make sense of current affairs? Let's make your UPSC prep smarter. Introducing Digital Current Affairs Premium by Vision IAS, your all-in-one platform to read, revise, and write better every single day. Have a doubt from today's news or something in your syllabus? Just ask and get instant AI-powered answers that are concise, relevant, and completely aligned with the UPSC exam pattern. No more guesswork, no more confusion. Want to boost your mains writing skills? Practice daily with structured questions and get expert feedback to sharpen your content, clarity, and analysis, because writing well is winning half the battle. Need better revision? Use quick notes and highlights to save key points, mark important lines, and organize your current affairs in a way that actually works for you. And here's the best part, some of the most powerful tools are absolutely free. Daily news summaries from The Hindu, Indian Express, and more, curated, filtered, and exam ready. Downloadable PDFs so your notes stay organized and accessible. Daily quizzes and MCQs to reinforce what you've learned and track your progress. A smart student dashboard to monitor your performance and stay on top of your goals. Whether you're just starting or deep into your prep, Digital Current Affairs Premium adapts to your strategy and makes every minute count. So why prepare the hard way when you can prepare the smart way? Visit www.visionis.in/current-affairs and start transforming your current affairs prep today. Because with Vision IAS, you don't just stay updated, you stay ahead. UPSC CSE 2024 results are out and dreams have turned into ranks. Now you are asking, how do I get there? You've got the drive. What you need is the right guidance. Luxe Integrated Mentoring Program 2026 by Vision IAS is your one-stop guidance program for prelims, mains, and interview. Smart, strategic revision for prelims and mains. Consistent mentorship with personalized feedback. Daily weekly schedule and practice targets. Custom test practice via Sandhan test series. Interview and personality test training. All of it structured to guide you, strategic to keep you focused, and designed to meet your evolving needs. New batch starts from 19th May. It's your turn now. Start strong with Luxe Mentoring Program 2026.
What sets AIR2 and AIR3 apart in UPSC CSE 2024? They didn't wait to feel ready. They started smart with the GS Foundation course at Vision IAS Delhi. Structured learning, focused current affairs, real mentorship, test feedback that actually helps you grow. This course isn't just about study hours, it's about direction, clarity, and the strategy toppers trust. Start strong. Start where toppers started.
UPSC preparation is not just about reading books or watching online lectures. It requires personal guidance, real discussions, and structured practice. This is where offline mentoring makes all the difference. Unlike online learning, where doubts often remain unresolved, offline mentoring offers direct interaction, real-time feedback, and an environment of discipline and competition. One-to-one sessions help students get tailored advice, strategy corrections, and focused improvement. Every aspirant has different strengths and weaknesses. Personal mentoring helps address them effectively. Ground discussions sharpen analytical thinking and help students develop a multi-dimensional perspective on issues crucial for prelims, mains, and interview. Elocution sessions help in personality development, clarity of thought, and confidence, essential for UPSC interviews. Test writing is the most crucial part of UPSC preparation. It helps in time management, structuring answers, and improving content quality. Offline mentoring is not just about teaching. It's about grooming future officers with the right guidance, discipline, and confidence. So if you are preparing for UPSC, make sure you have the right mentor by your side.
CSAT is qualifying but absolutely crucial. No matter how well you perform in GS, if you don't clear CSAT, your prelims ends there. Every year, many capable aspirants fall short simply because they underestimated this paper. What's the way forward? Structured preparation, consistent practice, and the right guidance. Join the Vision IAS CSAT Classroom Program 2026 starting from 12th June at 11 a.m. What you'll get: complete coverage of quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning, and comprehension. Emphasis on speed, accuracy, and concept clarity. Regular practice with UPSC level questions. Personalized guidance and mentorship. Available in both offline, classroom, and live online modes. Whether you're a first-time aspirant or reappearing, don't let CSAT be the reason you fall short. CSAT is qualifying but absolutely crucial. No matter how well you perform in GS, if you don't clear CSAT, your prelims ends there. Every year, many capable aspirants fall short simply because they underestimated this paper. What's the way forward? Structured preparation, consistent practice, and the right guidance. Join the Vision IAS CSAT Classroom Program 2026 starting from 12th June at 11 a.m. What you'll get: complete coverage of quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning, and comprehension. Emphasis on speed, accuracy, and concept clarity. Regular practice with UPSC level questions. Personalized guidance and mentorship. Available in both offline, classroom, and live online modes. Whether you're a first-time aspirant or reappearing, don't let CSAT be the reason you fall short. CSAT is
So good evening to all of you. So this session, as all of you know, is about how to maximize your score in public administration optional. First of all, I think all of you have public administration optional. Yes? Or planning to take? Planning to take. Okay, fine. So let me briefly tell you about why this optional is important and how to maximize your score in this optional also. So in 2013, UPSC made changes to your syllabus. As part of the changes, they have removed one optional and added 2 more papers of general studies. The objective is to make sure that there is level playing field in this entire examination process. Before 2013, people used to get into civil services only on the basis of their scores in optional. They were never really getting any scores in GS because GS was never that much important. So to reduce this kind of discrepancy, they have made the changes. And they have introduced 2 more papers, GS paper 3 and GS paper 4 also. After that, their objective was to reduce the significance of optionals, but still optional continues to be the most important and dominant factor in determining your chances of getting into civil services. Let us see how it happens. Let us see what are the things here. So if you look at it, optional has 500 marks. And GS 4 papers combined together 1000 marks. 4 papers combined together 1000 marks. If you look at the GS scores on an average, GS paper 1 average score is around 90. Every year it is the same. GS paper 2 average score is around 85 to 95. Sometimes it will be more. Paper 3 in the last 3 years average score is only 75. Paper 4 again average score is around 90 to 100. So on the other hand, if you look at optional, people are getting 300 marks also out of 500. And if you combine all of them, 90, 90, 180, 180, 82, 60, 75, 335, around 340 marks. So in GS 4 papers combined together you are getting 340 marks. In optional, in 2 papers only you are getting 300 marks. This is the significance of optional. UPSC with the best of intentions removed one optional, thought that they would make the entire examination process a level playing field, but in reality it did not happen. 3 years back, a person from one literature optional has scored 360 marks. His GS score in all the papers combined together was only 300 marks. So optional continues to be a dominant factor. Take this year's results. Take all top 100 ranks. In top 100 ranks you can say that all of them have scored around 270 marks minimum in optional. All of them have scored around 270 marks minimum in optional, all of them. Some of them have got less, some of them have got more, but average is 270 marks. That is the reason why this optional continues to be very important. The next question is, what is the optional that you must choose? Let us talk about public administration. Because you must have heard about other options. Why this public administration is important? Because GS paper 2, Politics, Governance, Society and International Relations. GS paper 4, Ethics. If you look at both of them, the entire syllabus is covered in our public administration. Entire syllabus. What you must remember is that you have to do these papers compulsorily, whether you are taking public administration optional or not. The only advantage is that if you are taking public administration optional, you will be doing these things very well. I will give you this year example only. One of my students, she got a 12th rank this year. Her score in public administration is around 270 marks. But she scored top marks in GS paper 2 and paper 4. Around 135 marks here, 140 marks here. Whereas average mark in GS paper 2 is only 110 marks. In ethics, it is only around again 110 marks. That means she was scoring around 25 marks more here, 30 marks more here, 55 marks. Again, to give you the example, one single mark can make huge amount of difference. Last year, between the ranks 40 and 50, between ranks 40 and 50, all of them have got the same marks. They got the same marks, but the ranks are different. You can imagine how a single mark can make you huge amount of difference. If you are getting 50th rank, you will definitely get into IAS, but you will not be getting your home cadre. If you are getting 40th rank, you will get into IAS and you will also get your home cadre. That is why every single mark becomes important, and that is the reason why public administration continues to be very important optional from your examination point of view. Why? Because you are getting say anthropology, you are getting 270 marks, but if you are getting 110 marks here only, you will not get into services. On the other hand, with your knowledge of public administration, you will be getting these kind of marks. Take last 7 to 8 years. Almost all those people who have scored maximum marks in GS paper 2 and GS paper 4 invariably had public administration optional. For the simple reason that you will be studying all these topics in a more in-depth manner in public administration compared to a general studies student. For example, last year in our polity, a question was asked about a CAG and proprietary audit. It will never be done in your GS polity classes. It can never be done, and it will never be done in your polity classes. Why? Because in polity they will talk about only articles related to CAG. Articles 147 to article 148 to 151. But they will not ask those kind of things. Right now they are asking mostly questions related to application oriented aspects, which are mostly covered in our public administration. And that is the reason why this public administration continues to be the most important optional from your examination point of view. Next thing is that recently in April, when the budget session was held, the Minister of Personnel was answering the questions on the floor of the House. It is the Minister of Personnel which is responsible for functioning of UPSC. UPSC is a constitutional body, but it works under the Minister of Personnel. And what was the question? 2017 Bus 1 committee was appointed, and 2018 it had given its recommendations. When are you going to implement the recommendations of Bus 1 committee? This is what parliamentary committee attached to the Minister of Personnel was asking the minister. And the minister has replied on the floor of the House that we are going to implement the recommendations of this Bus 1 committee very soon. Why they are very important? Why? Because one of the important recommendations of Bus 1 committee is to remove optionals. Because these optionals continue to be the key factor in determining your selection to civil services. And Bus 1 committee has clearly said that these optionals have outlived their utility, because they don't contribute anything to your service. Because if you are taking physics optional, in what way your knowledge of physics optional will be helpful to you when you become a district collector? So that is the reason why it has recommended that these options should be removed and replaced with the things which are necessary for you when you get into civil services. One is law, second one is public administration. So Baswan committee has recommended removal of these optionals and replacing them with 2 papers of general studies compulsory, law and public administration. So most probably from next year onwards this will be implemented. That is what the minister has said. So from that perspective of also this public administration can be a very good optional. Now let us look at let us come to the focus of this lecture. What is the focus of this lecture? How to maximize your score in public administration. Why this becomes very important? Why it becomes very important? Why? Because as I said, you need 270 marks, minimum 270 marks to get top, into services, top 100 ranks. What UPSC has done this year, they have opted for normalization in optionals. They wanted to make sure that neither one optional becomes important nor other optional becomes less significant. As part of this, what UPSC has done, they have tried to normalize the scores in optionals. That is the reason in all optionals the average score is around 270. Some people may get to 300 marks, that's only exception. Otherwise average score of the top scorers is only around 270 marks. And as I mentioned, how to get those 270 marks? If you are lucky, you can get 300 marks also. The question is, what should we do? What should be done? How to maximize our scores in optional? That is what let us try to find out in this class. So what is the syllabus? Syllabus is very less. Public administration syllabus is very less compared to other optionals. And the books you have to read are also very less in number. And the competition is also less compared to other optionals. Competition is also very less. So if this is the case, what can we do to get this 270 marks? That is what we have to see. Whether it is public administration or any of your general studies papers, what you must remember is that what is not important is what you write. What you write is not important. What is important is how you write. That is what the first thing you have to remember. Around 16,000 people every year will write mains. UPSC is taking around 16,000 people for mains. Out of which, if you have to get into IAS, you have to get into top 70 ranks. Top 70 ranks. And the personality test interview is highly unpredictable. It is highly unpredictable in the sense that you don't know why you get those kind of marks in interview. So how to make sure that you are there in IAS? Only with your scores in the main examination. You must get a very good score in the main examination so that interview would become less significant also, because you don't know what is the mood of the board chairman on that particular day. If he is in good mood, he will give you 180 marks. Otherwise, he will give you 120 marks. So you cannot depend on it. So you have to depend only on your score in mains. So the question here is that how to be there in those top 70 ranks. So whatever I am telling you right now is relevant both for your optional as well as general studies papers. Right? How to maximize the scores, because you have to follow the same strategy whether it is optional or GS. So let us see what should be done, how things should be done. First I'll tell you about how it should be done in a theoretical manner. Later what we will do is we will try to take up the questions that were asked by UPSC last year. Try to apply whatever we have mentioned. That is what we are going to do. So let us look at those things. First, When it comes to answer writing, what are the techniques that you have to follow? First and foremost, you have to understand the question. First and foremost, you have to understand the question. This is the most important part of your answer writing, which is least recognized by the students. This is the most important part which is least recognized by the students. The problem is that what the candidates do is, the moment they get the question paper, see the questions, they will start writing immediately without even understanding what the question is demanding. That's why out of 16,000, only 70 are in IAS, because they start writing mechanically and everyone will be writing the same kind of answer. That's the reason why average score will be hovering around only those things. The first and foremost thing that you have to do is understanding the question. Second thing that you have to do is structure. Structure of the answer is very important. Structure of the answer is very important. Whether you are writing for optional or general studies, what is important is the structure of the answer. Structure of the answer is very important. What do you mean by structure? As you must have been taught also, this structure contains three things: introduction, explanation, and conclusion. It contains three things: introduction, explanation, and conclusion. Everyone knows this also. If that is the case, if everyone knows all these things, why they are not getting marks? The only thing they don't know is what to write here as part of introduction, as part of explanation, and as part of conclusion. I'll just give you an example here. For example, if the question is about CAG, Comptroller Auditor General, everyone will start their introduction with what is CAG. You will say that Articles 148 to 151 of our Constitution has provisions for CAG. CAG is expected to audit the accounts of the government. What is CAG? Comptroller and Auditor General. Now, if I am evaluating 30 answer sheets per day, if I see the same introduction in every answer sheet, do I feel like giving marks? Will I be giving marks? Obviously not. Why not? Because everyone is writing the same answer. That is the reason why average score will always be the same. That is the reason why, as I keep on saying, out of 16,000 who write mains, only 70 of them will be there in IAS. So then you have to write what is called different answers. Different answers. Not because you want to be different from others, but because you want your answers to be qualitatively superior to others. That is what you have to remember. You want to be qualitatively superior to others. That is what I meant by different answers. You want qualitatively superior answers to others. That is where you will be getting into top services. Now coming back here, as I said, as part of introduction, everyone will be writing the what aspect of the question. Right? Now how do you write a different answer as part of introduction? Because this is what we say, a good introduction is half the job done. A good introduction is half the job done. A good introduction. You can impress the examiner with your introduction. You can impress the examiner with your introduction. When he is reading your answer, his enthusiasm will be very high at the beginning of reading the answer. If you can impress the examiner with your introduction, you will automatically get the good impression and you will get 1 mark more than others. Imagine 1 mark more than others. You are writing 19 questions. 19 into 1, 19 marks. 20 marks. That is the difference between IAS and writing the examination next year again. In 4 papers, 20 into 4, 80 marks. Optional 2 papers, 40 marks. 80 plus 40, 120 marks. That is the difference between top 20 ranks and writing the examination next year. You are thinking 1 mark, how does it really matter? It is only small drops combined together that make up the ocean. Drops of water. So we should never forget the small things. So coming back here, then what should you write as part of introduction? Since everyone is writing about what aspect of the question, you have to start your answer with the why aspect of the question. That is the first thing that you have to remember. Whether it is GS or optional, you are starting with the why aspect of the question. For example, last year a question was asked in our polity governance paper about union-state relations, changing the nature of union-state relations. Everyone talks about how the union-state relations have changed in the last 1 decade or so. Content will be the same. Then why should I give you marks? I will give you marks only when you write something different, which is also relevant, which is qualitatively superior. Why this union-state relations had become so controversial? That is the why aspect of the question. That will be my introduction. Why union-state relations had become controversial? Why they had become controversial? I am asking a question. Have studied polity? Yes? So why they had become controversial? In the last 1 decade, why they had become controversial? Centralizing tendencies. What do you mean by centralizing tendencies? Why? Because our constitutional makers have opted for a federation with a strong bias towards the central government. So whenever the country has witnessed a single party rule with a charismatic person leading the country, automatically we have witnessed a lot of conflict between the union and states, because the strong and powerful central government has used all the provisions in the constitution to concentrate more power unto itself. That is the why aspect of the question. And if you don't mention this, you can be writing as much as you want, but you will not get marks. It is as simple as that one. And that is what you have to learn as part of answer writing. For example, CAG. Why CAG? Why do we need a CAG? Why do we need a CAG? Studied polity? Forget about public administration. You must have studied polity. Why do we need a CAG? That is what I am talking about. Why? The CAG's function is to audit the accounts of the government. But why? Pardon? Transparency. Please remember, that is the difference between 70 and 13 lakhs. 13 lakh people will apply for UPSC examination. Only 70 of them will get into IAS from open category. That is the difference. Some people will learn these things on their own over a period of time. That is the reason why average age of a person getting into UPSC is 28 years. When you are starting your preparation at the age of 21, you are getting into 28 years. Why 7 years? To understand these things. Why do we need CAG? Very simple. Because the essence of democracy is all about accountability. Democracy is all about accountability. And this accountability is very, very important when it comes to finances. Why? Because wherever there are finances, there is always scope for misuse of finances resulting in corruption. How to prevent this? How to ensure accountable governance? That is the reason why we need a CAG. And that is the reason why we made the CAG a constitutional body also, so that it can function in an independent and impartial manner. And if you are not writing this, you will not get marks. Any topic that you are studying, always start with Y aspect. I'll give you one more example. Last year, I'm sure you must have studied economy, right? Studied economy? Yes? Last year a question was asked in your Indian economy about labor code for 15 marks. Why do we need labor codes? Why do we need a simplification of these labor codes? Why? Please remember, average score in GS paper 3 was only 70 marks out of 250. You know the reason why? Because people don't have a conceptual clarity. Why do we need labor codes? Yes, I am asking a question. Why do we need labor codes? Why do we need labor codes? And why do we need simplification of those labor codes? India has implemented first generation of economic reforms between 1991 and 1993, basically in industrial sector, both domestic as well as foreign. That's why we call it as liberalization, privatization and globalization. Second generation of economic reforms were implemented between 2001 and 2003. Basically there we talk about financial sector reforms, insurance and other financial sector reforms. But the third generation of economic reforms we are yet to implement. That includes key labor reforms. India is a country wherein it is extremely difficult to employ people and also to remove them, hire and fire. The reason why we have so much of unemployment is because industrial sector is not willing to employ people. Why? Once you are employed, it becomes almost impossible to remove them. The kind of rigid labor laws that we have. Even if you are highly inefficient, the company will be forced to continue with you. This is the difference between India and United States of America. There is so much of flexibility. And that is the reason why there is a lot of economic growth also. In India, the labor laws are so rigid that industries are not willing to employ labor. The reason why this IT sector has seen such a huge amount of progress in India is because the labor laws do not apply to IT sector. They can recruit people today, they can be removed tomorrow. But this is not the case with manufacturing sector, especially MSMEs. And that is the reason why we are witnessing jobless growth. How to overcome this problem of jobless growth? Give freedom to the private sector to hire and to fire people. That is why we need labor code. Whatever the topic you study, you must always start with the why aspect of that topic. And that is where answer writing also automatically improves. Because your introduction should always start with the why aspect of the question. So whenever you are answering any question, you should always start with the why aspect of the question. How our civilization has changed from Vedic period to post-Vedic period. What are the changes? Again ask the question why the changes have taken place. automatically you will answer the questions in a more beautiful manner compared to anyone else, and automatically you will be there in top 50 ranks, irrespective of your optional is. This is the most important thing that you have to remember as part of answer writing. It is polity, economy, governance, society, social issues, ethics, everything you start with why aspect. Last year in our ethics paper, a question was asked about probity in governance. Why do we need probity in governance? So why do we need probity in governance? Yes, why do we need probity in governance? Studied ethics? Yes or no? Not it. Okay, fine, leave it. So any question that you are attempting, always start with the why aspect of the question. That should be your introduction. You must have written hundreds of answers every day. I think in Vision you are expected to write one answer every day as part of class test. How many of you have really bothered to improve the quality of your answers? It is not writing hundreds of answers, it is about writing quality answers. And tomorrow onwards, whenever you write answers, start with the why aspect of the question. Automatically you will be getting at least 1 or 2 marks above average score. Only nothing else when you start with why aspect. Proceeding further, this is the introduction. Then comes the explanation part, the second part of your answer. As part of the structure for your answer, the second part of your answer is explanation. So what you will be writing in explanation? What you will be writing in explanation? Yes, I am asking a question. What you will be writing in explanation? What do you write normally? So what you will be writing, what you should be writing in explanation, let us see. In your explanation part, you have to write multi-dimensional answers. Multi-dimensional answers with interlinkages. That is the secret of success. As part of explanation, you are writing multi-dimensional answers with interlinkages. Right? What do you mean by multi-dimensional answers with interlinkages? Take any question. It has many dimensions. It has political dimension. It has economic dimension. It has administrative dimension. It has ethical dimension. It has global dimension. It has historical dimension. It has environmental and geographical dimension. Take any question. It has so many dimensions. Political dimension, economic dimension, historical dimension, global dimension, administrative dimension, then this geographical and environmental dimension, and ethical dimension. Ethical dimension. Any question will have these dimensions depending on the question. So what you have to do? You have to cover as many dimensions as possible. As many dimensions as possible in your answer. And then interlink all of them to the question that is being asked. Interlink all of them to the question that is being asked. Right? That is the crux of your explanation. Not only this, you have to support all your arguments with relevant facts. You have to support all your arguments with relevant facts. This is where you can see your knowledge of newspaper. Newspaper will cover all those facts. And also government documents, economic survey. They provide the most authentic facts, government documents. That is the reason why, this is what we say all the time. Your preparation for this examination starts and ends with newspaper reading. This is more so for public administration, because public administration is 100% dynamic, current oriented. Blindly you have to read newspapers and go to the examination hall and do all the things. If you are good with your, that is the reason why, as I told you, if you are good with your GS, you will be doing very well in PubAd. If you are good with your PubAd, you will automatically be doing very well in GS also, because both of them are linked to only one thing, that is current events, newspaper reading. So this is what your explanation should be. This is what your explanation, the most critical part of your answer. Proceeding further, the next part of your answer is a conclusion. So what should be your conclusion? What will you write as part of a conclusion? All of you are going to be administrators, right? When you get into civil services, you will be called administrators. And who is an administrator? Who is an administrator? An administrator is the one who understands what the problem is and who comes out with a solution. That is what is called governance. Governance means taking decisions and implementing those decisions. Taking decisions and implementing those decisions. That is what we call governance. Right? And UPSC wanted to test whether you have those administrative abilities or not. And how do they do that? Through your conclusion. They would like to see what your conclusion is. So that is the reason why your conclusion should always be what is called problem solving. This is what we call in English language prescriptive. Prescriptive. What does it mean? You are providing solutions. You are providing solutions. You are providing solutions. That means, your basic job as part of your conclusion is to provide solutions to the problems that are asked. For example, union-state relations. Your conclusion should be about what should be the solution. How to move towards what is called collaborative federalism. That should be your conclusion. Because this conclusion reflects ultimately your personality. It reflects your personality. And it reflects whether you are eligible to take up important positions within the government or not. And UPSC would like to see whether you have those qualities or not through your answers. So this is what it should be as part of your answer writing. Introduction, explanation and conclusion. What should be your introduction? Your introduction should always start with the why aspect of the question. Your explanation must include multidimensional answers with interlinkages supported by facts, providing all the dimensions. And your conclusion should be problem solving, prescriptive. That is what and that is how you have to write answers. So this is the same procedure that you have to follow whether you are writing in your general studies or in optional. Now proceeding further, let us take up the public administration. Public administration. Right? How to maximize our score in public administration. Let us look at these things. Let us try to put whatever that we have mentioned in practice by taking up the questions from last year and try to put them what are the principles that we have mentioned in practice, so that it becomes much more easier for you to understand. So let us take up the question paper last year. Let us take up that question paper. So let us first take up in Indian administration, then I will come to paper 1. Because Indian administration, the questions are easy to understand also. Paper 2. Right? Those who have studied public administration must be knowing these things. Ethics in public services. Ethics in public services has been the main concern of ethics in public services has been the main concern of Kautilya's Arthashastra. Examine the statement. Now, what you can see is that at the end of the question, you have these kind of things: examine and comment, discuss, critically analyze, elucidate, explain with relevant examples, like that. So, when the question is asked about a comment, does it mean that you have the complete freedom to comment the way you like it? Does it mean that you have the? Does it mean that you have Article 19(1)(a), freedom of speech and expression? Article 19(1)(a) is not applicable anywhere else in the country, including UPSC. Just because the question says comment, can you write that no comments? Can you? That is the reason why you should not get unnecessarily influenced by all these things. Right? Ethics in public services has been the main concern of Kautilya's Arthashastra. Examine the statement. So if you look at this statement, the key part here is main concern of Kautilya's Arthashastra. Is it the main concern of Kautilya's Arthashastra? Obviously not. It is one of the topics that were discussed by Kautilya in his Arthashastra. Of course, he gave a lot of importance to it towards the later part of Arthashastra. He had discussed about ethics in public administration, ethics in governance, but he also discussed about pragmatic aspects of administration. That's a different thing. Coming back, as usual, why ethics in public services is important? Why aspect of the question? Why ethics in public services is important? Why Kautilya believed that ethics in public services is the most important part of this Arthashastra? So have you studied Kautilya? Anyone who has done public administration? Have you studied Kautilya? Yes or no? No. So if you have not studied, then it becomes difficult, but no problem, I will explain all those things. So why ethics in public services is very important? Why? Because Kautilya strongly believed that the king must use all his powers only for the benefit of the people, for the welfare of the people. Because wherever there is a power, there is always scope for misuse of power. There is always scope for corruption. there is always scope for nepotism and favoritism. And that is the reason why Kautilya has given so much of importance to ethics in public services. Why? If you go back to the administrative systems of those days in our history, 2500 years back, the king or the emperor had absolute sovereign powers. And welfare of the people was the last thing in the minds of the kings. They were only concerned about expanding the boundaries of their kingdom. They were only concerned about ruling the country in a ruthless manner, because there was no democracy, there was no rule of law, there was no accountability. Dictatorship. That is the reason why Kautilya has said that ethics in public services. He gave so much of importance to ethics in public services. That is the reason why when you study Kautilya's Arthashastra, we talk about his famous saying, famous dictum. He said that in the happiness of his subjects lies his happiness. In their welfare, his welfare. The king shall consider as good anything that is beneficial to his subjects, and shall not consider as good anything that is beneficial to himself. That is where you can see the concept of a good governance, which is extremely important for present day rulers. If you look at the present day rulers, it is just a reverse. In the happiness of the rulers lies the happiness of the subjects. In the welfare of the rulers lies the welfare of the subjects. The rulers will consider anything as good that is beneficial to them. They will not consider anything as good that is beneficial to the people. That is the reason why Kautilya had given a lot of importance to ethics. Why do we say that people like Kautilya are visionaries, visionary thinkers? We say that people like Kautilya are visionary thinkers only because of the fact that they could foresee what is going to happen in the future. What Kautilya has mentioned 2500 years back in his Arthashastra can be seen to the minutest of details in our present day administration. He had spoken about how the rulers can become dictatorial in their functioning. He had described in a very elaborate manner how we can see there is so much of corruption in administration. He has described how the rulers squander people's money in the name of luxuries and comforts. That is the reason why he had spoken about ethics in public services. He said that this is how the ruler, the king, the emperor must carry on with his administration. He said that the king should never have any personal life of his own. He said that the king should sacrifice his self-interest for the sake of the people of his kingdom. He has prescribed a strict code of conduct for the king and the council of ministers, so that they would not indulge in corruption. And he has said that the king should exercise complete restraint when it comes to spending taxpayers' money. These are all part of ethics in public services. So now what do we say here is that at the end of the day, Kautilya's Arthashastra not only talks about ethics in public services, it also talks about what is called pragmatic politics. It is not only about ethics in public services, it also talks about pragmatic politics, wherein Kautilya has said that the king can use any kind of a means, illegal, immoral, unethical means, to secure his kingdom, to strengthen his hands, to expand the boundaries of his kingdom. That is what you have to write towards the later part of your answer. The question can be only about ethics, but you have to write a multi-dimensional answer, writing other dimensions that you find in Kautilya's Arthashastra. That is what, and that is how you have to write the answers. And then you have to link it to the present day administration. Why Kautilya's Arthashastra is relevant for present day administrators. For example, our members of parliament are only interested in their privileges. Our judiciary is only interested in their immunities. Nobody is interested in the welfare of the people. That is where Kautilya becomes important. And that is what you have to write, the application oriented answers. Everyone will write about the theory, but you have to write application oriented answers, linking Kautilya to present day administration. So that is how you will be writing the answers. Let us take up some other questions. Again, in public administration, most of the questions will be mostly controversial statements, very controversial statements. For example, the question says that it should be People's Prime Minister's office and it cannot be Prime Minister's PMO. Comment. We have a Prime Minister's office, PMO. We have a Prime Minister's office. And what the question says that PMO should be means People's Prime Minister's office, it cannot be Prime Minister's PMO. What does it mean? What do you understand by this question? As I said, most of the questions are very controversial statements. The fact that UPSC is an independent body, they can ask these kind of questions. If these kind of questions are given as statements anywhere else on Twitter or on X, immediately you will be arrested under section 154 of BNS, 152 of BNS. What is 152 of BNS? Have you studied BNS in your polity? Section 152 of BNS is the same as section 124A of IPC. What is section 124A? Sedition. If this statement is made on Twitter by you, you can be arrested under sedition laws. But UPSC is an independent organization. Their objective is to ask the questions which are critical in nature. The question says that it should be People's PMO, it cannot be Prime Minister's PMO. That means Prime Minister's office is the back office of the Prime Minister, which helps the Prime Minister to perform his functions. It is a staff organization that has come into existence to help the Prime Minister in performing his functions. In our parliamentary democracy, Prime Minister is the head of the government. As the head of the government, he performs multiple functions. And to perform all those multiple functions, he needed an efficient secretariat organization. That is the reason why PMO had come into existence. But over a period of time, this PMO had become truly PMO, Prime Minister's office only, but not the People's office. What does it mean? These officials working in the PMO had become very biased in their functioning, prejudiced. They were only working for the Prime Minister, in the process strengthening PMO, which has become undemocratic also over a period of time. The officials working in the PMO had become dictatorial in their functioning. And the PMO started performing highly controversial political functions, especially during the time of Indira Gandhi. When the country has witnessed what is called dictatorship during emergency, PMO had become very controversial. And whenever the country had witnessed a strong, powerful, charismatic person leading the country, automatically we have witnessed the dictatorship of the cabinet, which is reflected in the functioning of the PMO. The entire power is concentrated in the hands of the PMO. And the officials working in the PMO were acting as eyes and ears of the Prime Minister, but they were not informing the Prime Minister about the real problems faced by the people at the ground level. Because does the Prime Minister ever come into contact with ordinary people? Does ever Prime Minister come into contact with ordinary people? Does a beggar on the street has any kind of opportunity to meet the Prime Minister and explain to him his problems? Does a farmer from Maharashtra who is about to commit suicide, Can he meet the Prime Minister and tell him about his problems? Does the owner of a MSME, can he meet the Prime Minister, tell him about the systematic corruption that he faces on a day-to-day basis? Obviously not. So how will the Prime Minister come to know about all of them? Only through the officials working in the PMO. So the officials working in the PMO must make sure that this Prime Minister's office becomes truly a people's PMO. People's PMO, not a Prime Minister's PMO. That means they must bridge the gap between the Prime Minister and the people by ensuring continuous constant interaction. So that is the reason why this question was asked. Now, what else you have to write? You cannot be so critical also, because you cannot be too critical of the government. When you are going to be joining civil services, you have to be little bit more considerate. So then you have to talk about the recent reforms introduced by the Prime Minister in the functioning of the PMO that made it completely what is called people-centric PMO. For example, our Prime Minister comes out with the Man Ki Baat, which he addresses every month on the last Sunday of the month. And for this Man Ki Baat, PMO takes inputs from the people regarding the topics to be discussed, regarding the problems to be analyzed, regarding the achievements of the people. This Man Ki Baat is truly the problems of the people. That is where in the recent past we have seen democratization in the functioning of the PMO. It is starting acting more like a people's PMO rather than Prime Minister's PMO. Similarly, another major change that has taken place in the last few years in the functioning of the PMO is that what we have witnessed is that program implementation division, which was with the cabinet secretariat, has been shifted to Prime Minister's office, so that the Prime Minister will have a continuous up-to-date real-time information about the implementation of various schemes of the government. They can find out where the problems are. They can see how to provide solutions to those problems. And that is how we are trying to make it as a people's PMO. Similarly, again in the recent past, PMO had come out with a facility wherein they said that anyone can approach the PMO with their grievances. We have a CP grams, centralized processing grievance redressal mechanisms, wherein citizens can come out with their problems and the PMO can solve those problems by directing those problems to the departments and ministries and making sure that they are addressing those problems in a time-bound manner. This is another dimension of what is called people's PMO. You have to write about all these things, right? After writing all these things, then you have to come out with more solutions. You have to say that PMO should be made more democratic in its functioning. PMO should not enter into the political activities of the Prime Minister, must restrict itself to the administrative aspects of governance. PMO similarly should give freedom to the ministries and departments to take decisions and implement decisions rather than concentrating all the power in the hands of the PM. That is what you have to write as a solution. Please remember, all these things you will come to know only when you read newspapers regularly. That's what I said. At the end of the day, it is all about newspaper reading. So, let us look at another question. Implementation of a GST has led to a paradigm shift in the center-state relations, both financially and politically. Analyze. Implementation of GST. You must have studied about GST in your polity and economy. That is what I said. If you are very good with your polity and economy, automatically you are good with your public administration. On the other hand, if you are good with your public administration, you will automatically be very good with your polity and economy. It is as simple as that's what I told you. If you are getting, if your public administration knowledge is very good, paper 2, paper 3 and paper 4, you are getting very good marks. Because public administration is nothing but polity, governance, economy, ethics. That is the syllabus of public administration. UPSC has taken these 4 things and converted them into 3 papers of general studies. The question says implementation of GST has led to a paradigm shift in the center-state relations both financially and politically. Now coming back here, as usual, let us start with the why aspect of the question. Why we have implemented GST in the first place? Why did we implement GST? I am asking a question. Why did we implement a GST? GST means to have uniform taxes. One country, one tax. Why should we have? That's what I always say. The why aspect is different from what aspect. People think that what aspect is why aspect, they are different. What of GST means? To have one country, one tax. That is the objective of GST. But why do we need GST? Why should you have one country, one tax? To prevent cascading of taxes. And as we have mentioned, first generation of economic reforms were implemented between 1991 and 1993. And the second generation of economic reforms were implemented between 2001 and 2003. As part of second generation of economic reforms, we are talking about GST. In 2003, the government has initiated the process of implementing GST. Finally, it was implemented in 2017 when Parliament had a special session and both the houses of Parliament have given their approval for this very crucial constitutional amendment. But why? Why we have given so much of importance to GST? Why this is very important economic reform? To prevent cascading effect of taxes, fine. What else? Why? Because in the age of globalization, the success of globalization can be seen in terms of our ability to attract investment. Success of globalization can be seen in terms of our ability to attract investment. How much investment that you are attracting, both domestic as well as foreign. Through liberalization, domestic investment. Through globalization, foreign investment. When do they come and invest in your country? They come and invest in your country only when there is a single tax all over the country. As part of federal polity, what we have done? We have given certain amount of taxation powers to the states and certain amount of taxation powers are with the central government. So what is happening? Both the central and states are imposing taxes which is resulting in huge amount of tax burden first. Second, the taxes in one state are different from the taxes in other states. When I am entering into India, a foreign investor, I am looking at India as a single market because one country. But when I come to India, what I see is that India has 28 markets, not single market. Every state has its own taxation system. Then I will be running away from the country, saying that it takes so much of time for me to understand the taxation system of each and every state. In one state, one particular good is taxed 10%. In another state, the same commodity is taxed 15%. How do I do business? To improve the ease of doing business, to attract investment both domestically and foreign, we have implemented GST as part of second generation of reforms. That is what you call the why aspect. Please remember, you will be studying this GST in your economy. I am sure you must have studied. Have you studied GST in your economy? But in your economy, they will not be teaching these things. They will say that it is only an indirect tax. It is an extension of value added tax. They will say that GST means goods and services tax. But why? Why? That is what I keep on saying all the time. Your preparation is only asking the right kind of questions. What is that right kind of question? Why? Automatically, if you write this as your introduction, you will be getting 1 mark more than others, irrespective of whatever you are writing as part of your explanation. That is what I said. Introduction is the most important part. Now coming back to the rest of the question, it has said that this GST has led to paradigm shift in the center-state relations, both financially and politically. So what is this paradigm shift in center-state relations, both financially and politically? So what is that paradigm shift? What do you think is the paradigm shift in center-state relations, both financially and politically? What do you think is that paradigm shift? You studied GST, right? Yes or no? Studied? I am sure you must have studied GST in your economy. In polity also, as part of cooperative federalism, you must have studied. Yes or no? Yes? So what is that shift that had taken place? Please remember, the same question will be repeated in your polity. In fact, it has been asked in your polity, GS paper 2. What UPSC is doing? They are taking the questions in your Indian administration and repeating them as a questions in your GS paper 2 polity. That is the reason why people don't get marks in GS paper 2. Because in polity you will not be taught these things. Yes, what kind of paradigm shift has taken place in center-state relations with the implementation of GST? Pardon? Revenues have increased. Okay. Is that a paradigm shift? What else? What else has happened with the implementation of GST? How center-state relations have changed? Please remember, last year in your polity also this was asked for 15 marks. Dynamics of union-state relations, you will be writing about GST. What is it called? It is known as collaborative federalism. Implementation of GST has resulted in the emergence of collaborative federalism. What do we mean by collaborative federalism? What is the difference between cooperative federalism and collaborative federalism? Yes, what is the difference between cooperative and collaborative federalism? Yes, I am asking a question. What is the difference between cooperative and collaborative federalism? Have you studied union-state relations? The topic in your polity? Yes? Then what is the difference? Have you studied this M.M. Punchi Commission on center-state relations? Heard about it? Yes? That is what the commission has mentioned. It has said that cooperation can be voluntary in nature. That means either you are willing to cooperate or you reject to cooperate. It is voluntary. Whereas collaboration is mandatory. That means you don't have any choice. Implementation of GST has led to this kind of paradigm shift in center-state relations from cooperative federalism to collaborative federalism. Now the center and states must come together and work together with the GST. Why? Because with the implementation of GST, neither the center nor the state governments have any unilateral power to impose any kind of taxes. Imposition of taxes, adding more commodities in the tax net, increasing the tax slabs, removing the tax rates, everything will now be decided only by GST Council, which consisted of the union ministers and all the finance ministers of the state governments. And the decisions have to be taken either unanimously, all of them are agreeing, or through consensus majority. And to take any decision, at least you need the support of at least 2/3 of members to get any decision implemented. 3/4, yeah, 3/4, yeah, 75%, sorry, 75%, right? That is the paradigm shift that has taken place. Both center and states have come together nowadays more often than not. As Nirmala Sitharaman says, she says that these opposition parties severely criticizes any kind of increase in the taxes in the GST rates outside. She says that the same opposition parties strongly agreed to those taxes in the GST Council. For example, some time back, there was so much of a controversy about imposing taxes on insurance policies, 18% tax. Current events are very, very important. Opposition parties have severely criticized the government, saying that even on the health insurance of people, also government is trying to make money by imposing 18% tax. Then immediately Nirmala Sitharaman has said, when this decision was taken in the GST Council, all the state governments led by opposition parties have strongly supported it. After coming out of the GST Council, they are criticizing it. She was trying to make the hypocritical a stand of these opposition parties. That is how GST Council has changed center-state relations. Second major impact of GST is increase in the revenues of the governments, both the central and state governments. When the revenues go up, automatically they can be spending more amount of money on welfare of people also. So when your revenues are going up, it reduces the scope for conflict also. This is another major consequence of implementation of GST. And because of the increase in the revenues, they are able to spend a lot of money on infrastructure as well as social sector spending. This is another major consequence of implementation of GST. Third major consequence of implementation of GST is the country can be moving towards one country, one tax also. Maybe not immediately, but in the near future. So that we can have more harmony in center-state relations also. This is another major consequence of implementation of GST. But at the same time, there are so many problems also. Why? Because the decision-making process in the GST Council is still highly skewed in favor of the central government. Why? All the states combined together have only 66% voting rights in the GST Council. And the central government has 33%. 2/3 the states, 1/3 the central government. And for any decision to be implemented by the GST Council, it requires minimum 75% voting. That means even if all the states come together, they will not be able to get their demands met by the central government, because central government can use its veto powers. Because for any decision to be implemented, you require minimum 75%. All the states combined together have only how much? 66%. So even if all the states come together, they will not be able to get their decisions implemented by the central government, which is highly anti-federal in nature. That also you have to mention as part of GST Council, the changes in the center-state relations. So it requires in-depth knowledge of polity and economy to answer the questions in Indian administration. Proceeding further, examine the impact on administration in view of changing relations between the political and the permanent executive. This is purely public administration question, but this question can be asked in your ethics paper also as case studies. Examine the impact on administration in view of changing relations between the permanent and political executive. What do you mean by that? And who is the political executive? Who is the political executive? Prime Minister and Council of Ministers, Chief Minister and Council of Ministers. And who is part of permanent executive? Bureaucracy, civil servants, IAS officers and rest of them. The question says that what is the impact on administration of our country because of the changing relationship between the politicians and the bureaucrats? How our administration is getting impacted because of the changing relationship between the politicians and bureaucrats? A pure Indian administration question. Why the question is asked? Because what we are witnessing nowadays is politicization of civil services, and it has adversely impacted the efficiency of our administration. If you are an honest bureaucrat, you know that you will never be getting top level positions within the government. Someone like Ashok Khemka, he was transferred more than 60 times in his 30-year-old career. Recently he has retired also. He was never given any important significant positions within the government. On the other hand, if you are a bureaucrat who is very close to the Chief Minister or the Prime Minister, you will get important postings and positions within the government. Nowadays what we are witnessing is another phenomena called post-retirement positions. If you are a favorite bureaucrat of the government, you will automatically get plum postings within the government even if after your retirement. For example, the principal secretary to the Prime Minister, he was an IAS officer from 1960s. He got into civil services in 1960s. Those who took birth at that point of time when he got into civil services died also. But he is still continuing within the government. Even after 15 years of retirement also, he is still continuing within the government, showcasing a politicization of civil services. That is the reason why this question is asked. So, if you look at it, 1950s and 1960s, we have witnessed what is called balanced polity, wherein there was this balance between the politicians and the bureaucrats. Jawaharlal Nehru was the Prime Minister. So bureaucrats could give their opinions in an unbiased manner, and their promotions could be on the basis of merit also. But the moment we have witnessed Indira Gandhi as the Prime Minister, the first thing we have seen is politicization of civil services. That led to drastic decline in the efficiency. She wanted only those bureaucrats who are what you call them as S-minister type of bureaucrats. There is a popular British comedy, S-minister, about the functioning of British civil services. It applies more to India than to UK. You are a secretary working in a ministry. The minister calls you and tells you that tomorrow you should get the waters of Bay of Bengal to Delhi. You will go and tell the minister that, yes minister, it will be done. That is what the kind of bureaucracy that we have, who do not have the courage of conviction to say no to politicians. That is the reason why these kind of questions are asked by UPSC. And what we have witnessed, as I said, is politicization. Why this politicization of civil services? because their promotions, their transfers, their postings, their suspensions, their removals, their post-retirement positions, everything is in the hands of the political executive. At the central level, it is decided by the Prime Minister, who will be heading the Cabinet Committee on Appointments. At the state level, it will be decided by the unilaterally by the Chief Minister. And what we are witnessing at the state level is Chief Minister form of government. At the central level, you are witnessing Prime Ministerial form of government, wherein the Prime Minister has absolute powers, so as the case with the Chief Ministers. And this led to politicization of civil services. And what is the impact on administration? Administration is becoming less efficient. This is where you talk about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, when he has strongly argued in favor of a continuation of these All India services in the Constituent Assembly, he said that I want my secretary to say no to what I say and not to say yes. He is being paid by the government only to say no. And there are how many secretaries are there in the government of India at this point of time who can say no to their political masters, who can speak truth in front of those powerful politicians? That is the impact on administration. You have to write all those things with the relevant examples. With relevant examples. And then of course finally you have to provide solutions also. What should be done? What is required is depoliticization in the functioning of civil services. Because right now what we are witnessing is this nexus between the politicians and the bureaucrats. Woodrow Wilson spoke about the politics administration dichotomy. At the same time, we say that there should be close coordination between politics and administration. But unfortunately, in our countries like India, as Fred Ricks says, that countries like India, which are what we call as prismatic societies, countries like India are witnessing unbalanced polity. That is what Fred Ricks, one of the most important administrative thinkers, say. And what kind of unbalanced polity? We are witnessing what is called politicization of civil services, which is adversely impacting the efficiency of our bureaucracy. Our bureaucrats simply do not have the kind of moral authority and power, do not have simply the kind of moral authority and power to say no to our political masters. That is the impact on administration. Right now we have unbalanced polity only, wherein we are only witnessing what is called politicization of civil services. That is the reason why Fred Ricks says that bureaucracy in prismatic societies like India can never be efficient. And that is why we need to implement administrative reforms. And what the present level, what we are witnessing is that not only the bureaucrats are given extensions by the government who are extremely loyal to the ruling political party in power. In the present government, what we are also witnessing is that most of the bureaucrats are being made ministers also, blurring the gap between the bureaucracy and political executive. If you look at the present government, in the cabinet ministers, most of them are former bureaucrats only. For example, our external affairs minister, for Indian Forest Service officer, our minister for civil and urban development, again a bureaucrat, and then our minister for IT and telecom, bureaucrat. So most of these IAS and IAFS officers are being made politicians by the present government, blurring the gap between politicians and bureaucrats. So what the government is telling them is that if you are loyal to us, you will be made ministers also. That is where administration becomes highly inefficient also. That is what you have to write. Similarly, center-state relations are undergoing a drastic change. Elaborate. The same question was asked last year in your polity also for 15 marks. Only one question. The same question. Union-state relations are undergoing drastic changes. The same statement was there in your GS paper 2, Indian polity. The same question is given in our Indian administration also. If you are writing the main examination, normally first GS papers you have to write, then you have to write the optional. You can write in your Indian administration paper that please refer to my answer in GS paper 2, question number 15, section B, 15 marks, and give me marks also. God bless you. Please remember, UPSC is repeating the same questions in both the polity, governance and Indian administration papers. That's what I said. If you are preparing for Indian administration, you are preparing for 125 marks of polity, around 60 marks of governance, around 30 marks of society and social issues, around 80 to 90 marks of internal security and disaster management, and also around 250 marks of your ethics paper with Indian administration. But provided you are doing the things in a more detailed manner. Otherwise, you will not be getting either marks in GS paper 2, 3 and 4 or in public administration also. That is the reason why who gets very good marks in public administration invariably will score very heavily in GS. It is as simple as that one. As I said, the same question. So if you look at it, center-state relations are undergoing a drastic change. Elaborate. So this question is asked for 20 marks here. The same question was asked for 15 marks in your Indian polity, GS paper 2. So what kind of drastic change that is taking place in center-state relations? Yeah, tell me what kind of drastic change that is taking place in center-state relations in the recent past? Yes, tell me what kind of drastic change is taking place? I am asking a question. Have you studied polity? Yes. Have you studied the dynamics of union-state relations? So what are the changes that have taken place? I am asking a question. For every question, if you keep silent, how can we proceed also? So what kind of changes are taking place? So what are the positive changes and what are the negative changes? In the last 10 years of the present government, what are the positive changes that have taken place in our center-state relations? I hope you are preparing for UPSC only. What are the positive changes that have taken place in center-state relations? First, implementation of 14th Finance Commission recommendations. What happened with implementation of 14th Finance Commission recommendations? Suddenly the revenues given to the state governments have increased from 32% to 42%. A move towards cooperative federalism. Right? Then implementation of a GST, which is an example of a cooperative federalism. Implementation of GST. Third, replacing a planning commission with Niti Ayog. Replacing planning commission with Niti Ayog. Another example of cooperative federalism. These are all the positive changes that are taking place. And what are the other positive changes that are taking place in center-state relations? What are the other positive changes? Direct transfers direct transfers from the union government to the states. And these transfers are unconditional also. So that the state governments can decide how to spend their monies without any interference by the central government. State governments can decide how to spend their monies without any interference by the central government. This is are positive changes that have taken place in the last 10 years. Then what are the problems that had come up in the last 10 years? What are the problems that had come up? You can say that misuse of Article 356 also had come down. Article 356 had come down. Misuse of Article 356 had come down. Misuse of Article 356 had come down. And what are the problems in center-state relations? There are many. First one is governor. Second one is the discretionary powers of governors, especially giving assent to bills. Discretionary powers of governors. Third one is a tendency of union government to make legislations for subjects in the state list. Tendency of the union government to make legislations for subjects in the state list. Fourth is imposition of a cess and surcharge by the union government to avoid sharing of revenues. Imposition of cess and surcharge by the union government to avoid sharing of revenues with the states. Next problem is in the union state relations is regarding centrally sponsored schemes. Too many centrally sponsored schemes which are reducing the financial discretion of the state governments. Too many centrally sponsored schemes. Then controversy related to All India services. Controversies related to All India services. Controversies related to All India services. Next, initially the misuse of Article 356 in states like Uttarakhand and Arunachal Pradesh. Misuse of Article 356 in states like Uttarakhand and Arunachal Pradesh. Next problem is related to disaster relief provided to the states. Disaster relief provided to the states. Right? Next problem is regarding the terms of reference of 15th Finance Commission. Terms of reference of 15th Finance Commission, which had become again very controversial. Terms of reference of 15th Finance Commission, which had become very controversial because 15th Finance Commission has recommended that the base year for calculating population should be shifted from 1971 to 2011. Performing states have complained that they have been penalized for their performance. South Indian states which have controlled their population have lost out on monies to be given to them by the central government. These are all the major problems. Next one is the functioning of this GST Council, wherein the central government has absolute veto powers. Absolute veto powers. The central government has absolute veto powers. So this is what we say is the issue problems in the last 10 years. Then you have to talk about what should be done. How to move towards cooperative federalism. Last year in your polity also the same question was asked for 15 marks. In Indian administration the same question was asked again for 20 marks. You need more knowledge of current events. Then only you will be able to write good answers. For Indian administration, you need knowledge of constitution, polity, economy, current events. Then only you will be able to write good answers. Right? You have to write all these things for this question. The same thing you have to write for your GS paper 2 also. Same thing you have to write. Then coming back to the other questions, right? Coming back to the other questions, collegium system of appointment of higher judiciary has been the cornerstone of independence of judiciary. It has remained as the subject of debates in the recent past. Discuss. Again the same question is asked in your polity also. Collegium system is the cornerstone of our independence of our judiciary. It has been remained as the subject of debates in the recent past. Now what is the why aspect of the question here? What is the why aspect of the question here? Why there should be independence of a judiciary? That is what we have to look at. Why should judiciary be independent? Why should judiciary be independent? I am asking a question. Why should judiciary be independent? Answer this question from constitution point of view. Article 50, separation of judiciary from executive. But why? It is not Article 50, another article which is important here. Article 13 and Article 32. Article 32, it was called as the heart and soul of our constitution by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Article 13 is the crux of our entire constitution. What does Article 13 does? It ensures independent functioning of judiciary. Why? Because judiciary has been given the responsibility of evaluating the legislations made by the parliament as well as state legislative assemblies for their constitutional validity. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. A prime minister who has absolute majority in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, what can he do? He can easily become a dictator by getting any legislation passed by the parliament using the brute majority on the floor of the house. And that legislation might restrict the scope of fundamental rights. Then who has to protect the fundamental rights of the citizens then? Judiciary. That is what Article 13 says. Article 32 provides for constitutional remedies. All these 5 constitutional remedies are only about one thing, that is to prevent the dictatorial functioning of executive. Habeas corpus. If you are arrested illegally by the state, you can file habeas corpus petition. Mandamus. Those who are working within the state are not performing their functions which they are supposed to do as part of law. Judiciary can interfere and say that we are commanding that you must perform this function. Right? And then co-warrant, then prohibition, certiorari, all of them are related to only the functioning of the executive. And that is where we needed independent, impartial judiciary. And that is the reason why our Supreme Court has come out with this collegium system. In 1973, Supreme Court had come out with this landmark judgment in the Keshwanda Bharti case with 7-6 majority. And the judge who had given the casting vote, the Chief Justice at that point of time, could said to be the one who would be protecting our constitution from becoming into a dictatorship. And Indira Gandhi did not like this judgment at all, which has imposed restrictions on the powers of judiciary, which has imposed restrictions on the powers of the executive. That is the reason why even now also the executive cannot digest the fact that their powers are limited by the Supreme Court through this basic structure doctrine. So Indira Gandhi had completely politicized the functioning of judiciary, by making sure that she was superseding 3 senior judges to appoint her own favorite as the Chief Justice of Supreme Court. That is when the Supreme Court had decided to take the matters into its hands. That is when Supreme Court had come out with these various cases, the first judge case, the second judge case, and the third judge case. And in the second judge case, Supreme Court has said that there shall be a collegium consisting of Chief Justice and 2 other judges. In the third judge case, Supreme Court has expanded the size of collegium to include 2 more senior judges also. This collegium system has become controversial in the recent past. Why? Since independence, only 300 families dominated our Supreme Court. There are allegations of nepotism and favoritism. There is no way that the people can know how Supreme Court collegium members decide about the evaluation of the performance of the judges of High Court who can be promoted to Supreme Court. And there is uncle judge syndrome also. And there are so many controversial appointments to the Supreme Court as well as at the High Court level, wherein they were appointed not because of their efficiency but because of other factors also. That is the reason why this question was asked. It has been a matter of debate in the recent past. Then we have to provide a solution. So what is the solution to the problem? What is the solution to the problem? What is the solution to this problem of a collegium system? NJAC was declared as unconstitutional. 99th Constitutional Amendment was declared as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Can we bring back NJAC again? Will the opposition parties again support NJAC? They will not support. And this constitutional amendment must be ratified by more than 50% of the states also. And it requires 2/3 majority, which the government does not have in the Lok Sabha at this point of time. 2/3 majority. They have only simple majority, but they don't have 2/3 majority. Then what is the solution to this problems of collegium system? We have to make sure that the independence of judiciary is not compromised. At the same time, we also have to ensure efficiency and merit in the functioning of our judiciary. So what is the solution? The solution is All India Judicial Service, AIJS. You must have studied about these things in your polity also, these things. That is what you have to write for this question. As you can see here, in Indian administration, if you are good with your polity, automatically you are doing well with your Indian administration. Conversely, if you are good with your Indian administration, you are doing very well in your polity also. Right? Then proceeding further, let us look at some other questions. Right? The neutrality of civil services has become a myth. The same question can be asked in your ethics paper also. When you talk about civil services neutrality, you talk about 2 things. One is politically neutrality, second one is value neutrality. We expect the civil servants to be completely politically neutral. That means they should not have any political ideologies of their own. They must only provide impartial, unbiased, rational suggestions to the political executive, which they can do so only when they are politically neutral. But in the recent past, as we have discussed with the previous question also, this neutrality of civil servants has become a myth. Because civil servants, after they enter into services, most of them are getting into services with the wrong kind of intentions. What is the intention of people to get into services? Is it to serve the society? What is the intention? why do you want to get into civil services? To serve the country? Yes? That is what exactly 2 years back in 2021, a candidate from Northeast had said in his UPSC interview. He said that he wanted to serve the country, to work for the uplift of his people from his region, Northeast, to work for the welfare of the tribals from whose community he comes from, and to work overall for the inclusive growth. He got Odisha cadre. After training is over, he was posted as sub-collector, and only 2 days back he was arrested by CBI for taking 50 lakh rupees bribe, 80 lakh rupees bribe, and he was caught counting all the notes also. That is where the problem is. Now you tell me, why do you want to get into civil services? Yes, why do you want to get into civil services? You cannot say that you want to get into civil services to work for the society, right? Why do you want to get into civil services? That is where the problem is. Most of the students are getting into civil services with wrong intentions. That is the reason why we are witnessing this phenomena called neutrality of civil services being a myth. They are not value neutral. They have values. Unfortunately, they have wrong kind of values. Values can be either good or bad. Please remember, values are nothing but your preferences. Your preferences can be either good or bad, and most of them, their preferences are bad. Self-interest. Second, they are not politically neutral also. They are not politically neutral. Why? Because they want their promotions, they want their postings, they want their out of turn promotions, and they want their post-retirement positions. That is the reason why neutrality of civil services has become a myth. The reality is complete politicization of these civil services. The reality. And that is the reason why we say that we need reforms in our civil services. That is the reason why these kind of questions are regularly asked by UPSC, right? For example, take this question: parliamentary control over public expenditure is declining. The same question was asked in your GS paper 2 Indian polity before last year. This question was asked last year in our Indian administration. The same question was asked in your polity before last year. The same questions will be repeated in Indian administration and your Indian polity. Before last year in your polity, the question was about financial committees of parliament and why they are ineffective. The same question: parliamentary control over public expenditure is declining. Why parliamentary control over public expenditure is declining? Have you studied these things in your polity? Yes? Yes or no? Yes or no? Even if you have not studied, you can talk about these things. What is the reason why parliament control over public expenditure is declining? Why? Yes, why? Why? Because for the simple reason that parliament is not functioning at all. When the parliament functions, then only it can control public expenditure. Budgets are given approval by parliament without any discussion or debate, which is what we call it as, what is it called? Passing of budget without any discussion or debate. What is the technical term that we use for it? Budgets are getting guillotined. Guillotone. Budgets are getting guillotined. Why this question was asked last year? As I said, everything is about current events. This question was asked last year because Last year in the budget, if you look at it, the government, the budget of central government was around 5 lakh crores. 45 lakh crores of rupees of budget was given approval by Parliament in less than 2 minutes time, without any discussion or debate. That is the reason why this question is asked. Parliamentary control over public expenditure is declining. If this is about Parliament, the condition of parliamentary committees is much worse also. Public Accounts Committee, Committee on Public Sector Enterprises, Departmental Standing Committees, then Estimates Committee. They have so many weaknesses. You have to write all those weaknesses and also provide solutions also. The questions, please remember, are not at all difficult. If you are good with your polity, you will be doing very well in your Indian administration. It is as simple as that one. Or if you are good with your Indian administration, you are invariably going to do very well in your polity and governance also. Similarly, the journey of transformation of local governance has been long. Examine the challenges to realize the spirit of Gram Swaraj. Why 73rd amendment has been not a significant success? 1992 was the year when the Parliament has passed 73rd and 74th amendments. By 1995, all union and all the state governments have also given their approval, and also the local self-government had come into existence in 1995, and it's been 3 decades. In those 3 decades of local governments, why we have not been able to achieve the objectives of Gram Swaraj as Mahatma Gandhi dreamt? What did Mahatma Gandhi say? Mahatma Gandhi has said that the real freedom does not mean getting the independence from the Britishers. Real freedom does not mean getting independence from the Britishers. Then what is real freedom? He said that real freedom means we should put all the problems. Gram Sabha. Gram Sabhas do not meet. Participation of women. There is no social empowerment of either scheduled castes or scheduled tribes or women, in spite of reservations. Problems are with functions, functionaries and finances. Problems with capabilities of these panchayats. Elections are not conducted regularly by the state governments. Even if elections are conducted, the state governments are not willing to transfer powers. Still, we have a centralized top-down approach to administration with a huge number of centrally sponsored schemes, because of which these local self-governments have become only the line departments implementing the policies of the central and state governments, but not institutions of self-governance. Colonial attitudes of our bureaucracy. The district collectors never give any kind of importance to these local self-governments. You have to write all those things. So as you can see here, it is not at all that much difficult, provided you are good with your concepts and current events. So let us come to section A. This is about paper 1, section A. I can discuss these questions, but the problem is that most of you have not studied public administration. So that is when you cannot even understand what the question is also asking. Politics administration dichotomy debate is still alive. This debate of politics administration dichotomy was started by Woodrow Wilson in the year long time back in 1887. 1887, we are in 2025, 140 years. What did Woodrow Wilson say here? He said that both politics and administration are separate independent academic disciplines, political science and public administration. Public administration can never be part of a political science. He demanded that even now also in the political science optional, they will be studying public administration as one of the topics, chapters. That is the reason why I say that if you take the syllabus of a public administration of UPSC, it is just like one chapter in political science. Like public administration, political science has 20-30 chapters. That is the reason why to complete political science syllabus you take at least 15 to 18 months. Whereas public administration you will be completing in maximum 3.5 months. Because syllabus is very less. Because public administration is nothing but a small branch of political science. And that is where Woodrow Wilson has said that this public administration should be separated from political science and it should become an independent academic discipline. That is what Woodrow Wilson has said. Now the question says that is this politics administration dichotomy, is it still there? Yes, it is still there. Why? Because without politics administration dichotomy there can be two things, either politicization of administration or administration dominating the politics, what you call it as bureaucratization of a polity or a politicization of civil services. And we need this debate to continue because politics and administration perform different functions and the functions performed by them require different capabilities also. That is the reason why what an administrator can do cannot be done by a politician, and what a politician can do will not be able to be done by a bureaucrat. They require different skills, they require different knowledge, they require different competencies. That is the reason why this debate is still alive. But right now we are talking about in a close coordination between political, executive and bureaucracy to realize the objectives of development. That is what we say. So then things like formal organizations are made up of informal groups. Basically this is one of the statements of Chester Bernard, one of the important thinkers, wherein he said that a formal organization always has so many informal organizations, and these informal organizations are used by the formal organizations to maximize the efficiency of organization. And we have to give a lot of examples how this can be done while writing answers. Then grapevine is a necessary evil. What is this grapevine? Grapevine is basically what we call informal communication between the people working in the organizations. Human beings, we say, are social animals, and we always like gossips. Yes, in organizations that is what happens. Mostly they do indulge in gossips and they get information so quickly. For example, the board of directors meeting is going on, thousands of employees are there, and the board of directors will be taking major policy decisions. Immediately, even before the board of directors take any decisions, people will come to know about it. How? That is what is called a grapevine. For example, that employee who serves them tea and coffee and biscuits, he will stay there for 1 extra minute. He will listen to the discussions. Immediately he will put on his WhatsApp group that this is what they are discussing. The matter will travel very fast. Grapevine. For example, the results had come just now of the prelims, and since morning onwards in my Telegram group, people are writing so much about the results, about what is happening inside UPSC. How did they know? That is what is called a grapevine. It is necessary because it allows for a dissemination of information on a very easy, urgent and important basis. But it is also an evil. Why? Because most of the time you can see that wrong information is spread to create fear among the people. That is the reason why we must allow grapevine, but we must also be able to control this grapevine. Because with the spread of social media, what you can see nowadays is that this wrong information is spread so fast in the name of informal communication. That is the reason why we said it is an evil also, right? Media has become more of a societal lens than an institutional lens. Analyze. These are all the questions that you find in your GS paper 1 also as part of social issues. Media. Media has become more of a societal lens than an institutional lens. What does it mean? Nowadays media is focusing more on the dynamics of events that are taking place in the society than acting as a checks and balances over the institutions. Right now we are not witnessing in the media debates not much about the quality of the functioning of the institutions, more about the societal issues, which are mostly what we call which are mostly popular but not significant. For example, in the last 3 days, if you look at media, in all television channels they were only discussing about one issue, as if the country has no issues at all. This couple who went to Manipur, wherein the bride has killed her own husband, and every media house is discussing this issue as if this is more important than anything else. That is what the problem, that is what the question. Nowadays media is not acting in a proper responsible manner. They are giving more importance to breaking news. When there is no news to break, they will break the news and call it as breaking news also. That is why these kind of questions are asked. See, the best part of public administration is that even if you don't know anything, you can write beautiful answers. Even if you don't know anything, that is the best part of public administration. Right? Similarly, regulatory authorities are independent and effective for controlling service delivery activities but are subjected to extraneous factors. Do you agree? If you look at the regulatory authorities in India, most of them do not have the necessary functional and financial independence. Take the case of Competition Commission of India. Take the case of Security and Exchange Board of India. Take the case of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Take the case of University Grant Commission. Take the case of Pension Funds Regulatory Development Authority. Take the case of Central Electricity Regulatory Authority. The problem is that most of these regulatory authorities are supposed to provide quality services to citizens by controlling the functioning of markets, by preventing the monopoly in the functioning of service delivery mechanisms. But in reality, that is not what they are doing. Take the case of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Could they prevent the monopoly in the telecom sector of Reliance Industries Limited, Reliance Jio? Could the Competition Commission of India prevent the monopoly in infrastructure sectors in the country? That is why these questions are asked. Could SEBI prevent if the market collapses? Security and Exchange Board of India. This is the reason why these questions are asked. Regulatory authorities in India suffer from basic issues like politicization, like any other institution. The executive uses its powers to appoint their most favorite bureaucrats as the heads of these regulatory authorities. That is the reason why these regulatory authorities will never come out with any kind of orders that would cause any kind of inconvenience to the ruling political party. Competition Commission of India is a classic example. They could not prevent monopoly in any of the sectors. They could not ensure better competition in any of the sectors. Take the case of key infrastructure sectors: ports, monopoly; airports, monopoly; petrol, monopoly; electricity, monopoly; cement, monopoly. That is the reason why these questions are asked. Entire public administration is only about dynamic aspects of administration. What are the major challenges? You will be studying these things in your GS paper 2 also, as part of statutory bodies, constitutional and statutory bodies. Right. Strengthening social audit through appropriate ways will be promote inclusive government. Comment. Social audit means auditing done by the stakeholders themselves. That is nothing but what is called inclusive government. Till now, auditing is done by the CAG, which is a bureaucratic audit which does not involve the beneficiaries. Whereas in case of social audit, it is done by the beneficiaries. NREGA workers will be conducting the social audit to see whether they have received the money on time. Similarly, under PMAY, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, social audit committees consisting of beneficiaries will be seeing whether they have received the houses that are promised and also the quality of services that are provided by the state also. And that is the reason why social audit will ensure inclusive governance and citizen-centric administration. So, I can discuss all these things like this, but again, as I said, these things are not that much difficult as part of the question papers. And what you have to remember is three things while writing answers. First, understanding the question. Second, starting the answer with the why aspect of the question. Third, writing multi-dimensional answers with interlinkages. In public administration, you have to link paper 1 and paper 2. You have to link the thinkers in paper 1 to Indian administration examples. In Indian administration, you have to link events in Indian administration to the thinkers in paper 1, interlinkages. And in both the papers, you have to talk about the relevant facts, because you have to support your arguments with facts. And finally, you have to come out with conclusions. So this is how normally you have to do the public administration preparation. And it is not at all difficult also. As I keep on saying, it's not at all difficult to get that kind of score. It depends on how you prepare, because at the end of the day, it is your preparation that decides your success in this examination, right? It is not about, so whenever you are preparing, you are looking for conceptual clarity, you are looking for interlinkages, you are trying to understand the concept from different dimensions, and you are trying to interlink all those dimensions with relevant facts. If you are able to do this, the best part of public administration, as I keep on saying, is that the syllabus is very, very limited. And the second thing is that 80% of the syllabus is there in your GS, not 1 or 2. That is where, if you are getting good marks in public administration, you will be automatically getting very good marks in your general studies papers also, and vice versa. So this is what we say about public administration, right? So any other questions you have, you can ask me about answer writing. If you have any other questions, you can ask. Okay, then it is fine, and I wish you best of luck in your preparation, right? Okay.
CSAT is qualifying but absolutely crucial. No matter how well you perform in GS, if you don't clear CSAT, your prelims ends there. Every year, many capable aspirants fall short simply because they underestimated this paper. What's the way forward? Structured preparation, consistent practice, and the right guidance. Join the Vision IAS CSAT Classroom Program 2026 starting from 12th June at 11 a.m. What you'll get: complete coverage of quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning and comprehension. Emphasis on speed, accuracy and concept clarity. Regular practice with UPSC level questions. Personalized guidance and mentorship. Available in both offline, classroom and live online modes. Whether you're a first-time aspirant or reappearing, don't let CSAT be the reason you fall short.
The UPSC exam doesn't defeat you with difficulty. It defeats you with confusion, lack of clarity, lack of direction, and preparation that feels scattered. At Vision IAS Delhi, we rebuild your UPSC journey with structure, strategy, and support that doesn't waver. Get complete coverage of GS, CSAT, and essays step by step. PT 365 and Mains 365, so current affairs stop feeling like chaos. Personal mentorship, not just advice, but actual strategy guidance. Test feedback loops, because growth begins where guesswork ends. Toppers didn't just prepare, they built the right foundation. Now it's your turn. This isn't just a course, it's where clarity, consistency, and confidence begin.